Senator Deacon, Nova Scotia, on debate.
Thank you, Speaker. I'll say, Senator Marshall, that I think you're the only one in this room who's glad you're retiring next year. But at least we have you assessing 2 budgets in the meantime, thanks to the delay of this budget. So anyway, I too am going to speak to C-6, the Appropriation Act for the next federal fiscal year. Senator Marshall went quite broad and covered everything. I want to just deal with a slice of that spending. And I'd like to start by thanking our colleagues in the National Finance Committee who spent so much time last week examining the main estimates and supplementary estimates. The purpose of my speech today is to comment on the priorities of this government going forward, especially as it relates to the $8.6 billion in spending that C-6 authorizes through what is once again known as the Department of Industry. We estimated in our office, who work from Stats Canada, about half that amount goes into what are called business innovation and growth support programs. And I'm going to speak about 2 different types of those business innovation support programs, being programs designed to make entrepreneurship more inclusive in Canada and programs that are specifically designed to support innovation in Canada, creating new opportunities, jobs, and wealth from ideas. Let me start with programs designed to address making entrepreneurship more inclusive. Starting in 2020, my office examined barriers facing Black entrepreneurs when building and scaling businesses, and our report was released in cooperation with the African Canadian Senate Group and Black business leaders in 2021. We found that Black entrepreneurs faced substantial market barriers in Canada. More recently, Senator Gerba and I collaborated to produce a report examining the success of these programs and to address the barriers that they faced. And these efforts reflect our ongoing focus to ensure that government fulfills real market gaps where possible and uses private sector due diligence to do that well. Each of these reports are available on our website if you're interested. But to this end, I was really thrilled that the main estimates included a continuation of funding for the Black Entrepreneurship Loan Fund and the Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, because these programs are intended to address systemic barriers that limit access to capital, resources, and mobilize diversity of talent across the country and build evidence-based policies. Now I'd like to focus on the programs intended to drive innovation in our economy, particularly by commercializing our world-class research that we're investing in through many different aspects of our federal government. We examined portions of the departmental plans and focused primarily on expenditures and efforts intended to catalyze innovation in Canada. Successive governments, though, have developed numerous programs intended to spur innovation across Canada. We think it's hundreds of programs that the federal government has created, in fact. Last summer, my office endeavoured to review the extent and success of these federal innovation programs, and we identified over 140 programs just in the summertime with a student. We've got more work to do still, I'm sure. And these programs report to 28 departments and Crown corporations. We produced a discussion paper entitled Federal Programs for Business Innovation, and it's on my website. But in short, we found a lot of reporting about funds spent, a lot of reporting about activities conducted, and businesses supported. But we really struggled to find evidence that captured the actual benefits in terms of business outcomes. And that's really concerning. We're not alone with our concerns. The Conference Board of Canada gave Canada a C grade in their 2024 Innovation Report Card and ranked us 15th out of 20 countries, despite billions in funding dedicated to promote business innovation. Therefore, with a new Prime Minister, a new clerk of the Privy Council, and a new government, we have the opportunity to rethink how we do things. If we're going to build the strongest economy in the G7, we have to rethink how federal government helps to catalyze innovation across our economy. So as the government prepares for the summer expenditure review and the fall budget, now is the time to identify ways to break free from outdated processes that have too often ingrained a culture of risk aversion and inertia. The motto in my office is, an innovative economy needs an innovative government. Canada's not had an innovative government. You know, I talk about innovation a lot, and that's because, quite frankly, it hasn't been a consistent priority across government. The point isn't to be innovative for its own sake or to spend money on things that are thought to be cutting edge. The point is to create opportunities, global competitiveness, operating efficiencies, better services, improved health, greater security for Canadians. So if we're serious about delivering these outcomes, we need to start to measure which policies and programs have the greatest impact. This means key performance indicators must be created and tracked. Yet too often, we've found KPIs that are unclear, inconsistent, or report on activity like money spent, businesses involved, rather than results achieved. In our report on the 140-plus innovation programs, we concluded that we can and must get a much bigger bang for our innovation program buck. Simply, we found KPI data too often had no comparator or benchmark, proving that could prove that the investment caused a differentiated outcome. If this evidence doesn't exist, then the funding should be redirected to programs where it does. Let me offer a metaphor to drive this point home. We've all seen ads from private schools celebrating the scholarship and other post-secondary successes of their graduates, especially at this time of year. And they deserve congratulations, well done. But too many of these same schools have very challenging admission standards. So when they admit an A student and graduate an A student, it leaves me wondering how big a deal that really is. Personally, I far rather support and carefully examine and replicate the schools that accept C and D students, just because I was one of them, and helps them to graduate as an A student. That is transformational. Program KPIs must show a differentiated outcome. When it comes to supporting innovation, our public funds need to be used as a catapult, not as crutches. All innovation programs must be focused on ensuring Canada's globally competitive intellectual property is commercialized in ways that create opportunities, jobs, and wealth in Canada. And today, too often, that is not the case. A recent data from the 2024 CG report shows that more than half of the industry patents generated from Canadian intellectual property are foreign-owned. Data from our university technology transfer offices show that revenue from the cumulative licensing of Canadian IP from Canadian universities delivers only a 1.5% return on the annual research funding we give to those universities. It's not sustainable. If we don't get a return on investment that will ensure the sustainability and global competitiveness of our universities, we're going to see a cut in the funding to those universities. I think we're seeing that now. So we need to do everything in our power to ensure that our research is owned and commercialized at home. And I think that's what a lot of these Industry Canada programs are intended to do. But it's not happening. So this requires a recalibration of how we support innovation in Canada. But the good news is there are already proven programs that can turn our ideas into strategic assets. Let me provide you with an example. We have an incubator and accelerator programs that have actually been contributing to the commercialization of Canadian science, technology, and innovation in Canada, and are helping to create and grow businesses that are excelling in highly competitive global markets in terms of sales and investment. They're achieving success in ways that we have not seen from any existing government innovation programs offered by Industry Canada. My challenge to those 28 departments offering programs intended to drive innovation is please provide the Prime Minister and Clerk of the Privy Council with data that shows that each of your programs delivers differentiated results that are similar to the best incubators and accelerators. Let me give you one example of what can be accomplished. The Creative Destruction Lab, or CDL, is based at Monk School at U of T. It's one of the best in the world. I'm far from alone, but since I spent the day there yesterday, I have some of our colleagues spent an afternoon there just prior to Parliament restarting. I thought it was worth just to focus on it for a second. CDL is a unique program on a global scale. Their shared mission was born, built, and is succeeding from Toronto. And its mission is to enhance the commercialization of science for the betterment of humankind. It has 5 sites in Canada and another 8 sites across the globe. Yesterday, their global super session brought together hundreds of mentors and founders at the personal expense of those mentors and founders to Toronto from more than 20 countries. They were there to celebrate CDL and its excellence and some of the incredibly successful companies. The mentors included academic experts in every field that you could imagine, from understanding the culture at the bottom of our oceans to the far reaches of space. The mentors also included entrepreneurs who had taken an idea and turned it into opportunities, high-value jobs, and wealth. When CDL started in 2012, the dream was to create $50 million in equity value. Today, CDL companies have generated over $50 billion in equity value. That is, by definition, a globally competitive KPI. That's a key performance indicator that shows that you are capturing market opportunity and bringing it to Canada. And CDL is not the only incubator achieving this global success. So why are we using anything less as a measure of success for our federal innovation support programs, especially during this time of economic and geopolitical crisis? This is where Canada has the greatest opportunity to accelerate our growth and success and get real value for money for the $4 billion plus being spent in these programs, as seen in our recent estimates. Canada, we've got to stop sprinkling money around. Canada can't go along not relying on the advice of global experts and domain experts that really understand the area of science, entrepreneurs who have already demonstrated the ability to identify and scale ideas. We need to deeply examine every innovation support program and question why it exists. We need to lean on those programs that have the evidence demonstrating that they consistently build globally competitive businesses and that are capturing the massive and growing global market opportunities that we have proven already we can capture. Canada has been the global leading philanthropist in ideas. We invest in research and we give it away. We can no longer afford this. When we invest in discovery, it's great, but others are unfortunately commercializing and creating the wealth from our ideas. We were world leaders in AI and quantum. We lost that lead because we failed to support the commercialization. Our innovation programs failed to support the commercialization of globally leading Canadian science in globally competitive ways. The government is planning an expenditure review this summer. I'm hoping the Prime Minister, the new clerk, and their teams are hyper-focused on rethinking how our current innovation programs create sustainable and globally competitive value for Canadians. I'd offer that programs without KPIs are not programs, they're aspirations. And aspirations, while being important, are not enough to build the strongest economy in the G7. We have an opportunity now to create generational change. Let's not waste it. Thank you, colleagues.